Greetings, it's Christine. In this video, you'll learn some fun facts about rabbits, bunnies, cottontails, hares, and jackrabbits. You'll learn about the characteristics that unite the rabbit family and about some of the common and rare species from around the world. Once you have a solid introduction to rabbits and what they look like, I'll leave you in several step-by-step drawing demonstrations in colored pencil using reference photos that you can download in the links below. And here's a couple of examples. And since it's Easter, I'll also share some fun facts about the Easter Bunny and some other famous rabbits of literature and folklore. So let's get started. So you can use any art medium that you love. I'm drawing with pencils. And then you might want to download the reference photos. And so here's pictures of those. So these are 2 pages of pictures of the black-tailed jackrabbit, which actually lives where I live and throughout the Western United States. That's the main one we're drawing today. And so I am going to be demonstrating with brown Prismacolor, very thin pencils, just so you know what I'm using. But again, you can use anything you want. I like using pencils, colored pencils compared to graphite pencils because those will smear in your sketchbook. And most of the time when I'm sketching things and painting things, I'm out in the field drawing things live. And so I don't like to use regular like school pencils because those smear and make your sketchbook all messy. So anyway, my second demo is a quick one using Derwent Inktense pencils. And those you can wet and make them kind of a cool, they kind of look like watercolors. So we'll talk about those later. Anyway, so we are going to first introduce rabbits, some examples of rabbits in literature, art, and folklore. Now, of course, I'm an artist and many of you are too. So a couple of my favorite paintings of rabbits way back in the 1500s, that's 500 years ago, people were drawing very beautiful drawings and paintings. And Albrecht Dürer did this watercolor painting. This was called The Young Hare. Isn't that beautiful? That was 500 years ago. And that painting is still hanging in a museum. And then a little bit more recently, one of my favorite North American artists, Georgia O'Keeffe. Many of you know her for her more fanciful drawings of skulls and flowers and desert landscapes. But when she was young, she did a lot of things that were very realistic. And this is an oil painting called Dead Rabbit with Copper Pot. You can see just how realistic and beautiful that is. So my favorite rabbit growing up, besides the real Easter Bunny, of course, was the fictional Peter Rabbit. And I actually have, I want to show you, I actually have this book from when I was a kid. How many of you have read The Tale of Peter Rabbit? I'll be mentioning a lot of different real and fictional rabbits today. And so in the chat box, please tell me if you've heard about any of these guys. So Beatrix Potter lived in the early 1900s in England, and she wrote many books, but her first ones were based on real life animals that she knew. And she had a pet rabbit. His name was, what was his real name? Peter, I think his real name was Peter Piper. And she had written some letters to a nephew, I believe, that were kind of telling stories about her real life rabbit that eventually she went on to create a whole series of these books. And they were very beautifully illustrated. See, a lot of you are fans, yes. And there are some amazing books about Beatrix Potter's life that I highly recommend. And so she wrote this book, a whole series of these books based on her own real life rabbit, the European rabbit, which we'll see pictures of later. Yeah, so that's one kind of fictional rabbit. And she prided on herself on trying to draw them very realistic, although often they were wearing clothes. Yes. So who has read The Velveteen Rabbit? That was about the same time in 1922, and that was about a stuffed rabbit that I think wanted to be real. How about Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland? That's a little bit more grown up and a little bit more scary, but she had the white rabbit, also known as the March hare. And we'll talk about why this called the March hare later on. And these were also based on real life rabbits, the European hare, which is a different species than Beatrix Potter's Peter Rabbit, which was based on the real life European rabbit. Those are two different species. Yes, many of you in the chat box say you've enjoyed these before. Another one that's a little bit more serious and grown up, I remember reading when I was a kid, was Watership Down, about a whole warren of rabbits. I believe the main one was named Helen, that lived in England. Okay. And then who remembers Thumper from Disney's Bambi? And he was named Thumper because he thumped his foot. And that's a real life behavior that a lot of rabbits do, sort of as a warning when they're stressed out or scared. It's a communication for them to tell the other rabbits that there's some danger. So, anyway, that's why Disney's Thumper was called Thumper. Okay, and then has anyone heard of a jackalope? That's a very fictional rabbit compared to the real life Easter bunny, of course. This is a fictional rabbit called the jackalope. And it's a rabbit that is a combination, or it's a fantasy animal that's a combination of an antelope, like the antelope you may have drawn with me in the past, the pronghorn. Has anybody here drawn the pronghorn with me? Do you remember doing that in our mammal class? So the jackalope is a fictional character based on a combination of an animal that's sort of like an antelope and a rabbit together. And you can see they're so big. Now, the interesting thing is that I was reading that the jackalope is actually based on real life rabbits that actually were infected by a virus called Shop's papilloma virus. And it creates these weird horny growths on the body of a rabbit. So, like, this is actually this weird growth coming out of the bottom of this poor rabbit's mouth that's kind of horny, and it might look like an antelope horn to some people. Anyway, you probably remember the Energizer Bunny and the Trick Cereal Rabbit, right? So there's so many rabbits in our culture and also around the world. Of course, most of these rabbits are from North America and England, but if there are other fictional rabbits that you know of that are famous from literature, put them in the chat box. Tell us about them. Yeah, a lot of people are telling us all about that. Cindy says your best friend had a rabbit named Thumper. Yeah. And when I was a kid, I raised rabbits as well. I raised Angora rabbits that were raised for their wool, and I would brush them, and the wool would come off, and you could spin that into a very beautiful fiber that was very soft. Okay, here's another one, the Bugs Bunny and Briar Rabbit. The Briar Rabbit. Okay, so that's enough for fictional rabbits. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how to sketch, especially sketching quickly in the field, and then we're going to practice sketching some bunnies. Bunnies that kind of look like the Easter rabbit. Okay. Okay. So, anyway, now we're going to talk about how to sketch rabbits really quickly, how to simplify their shapes and try to make them a little bit cartoony, a little bit fun and cute and simple. And usually a cartoon rabbit has more simpler shapes, just like circles and rectangles and triangles, and then trying to make a really big eye and a cute face, but still being somewhat realistic, right? So if we were going to be sketching rabbits, like you might see, like where I live, I have both desert cottontails and jackrabbits. Even in my backyard, sometimes I have cottontails, and so you want to keep it really light and loose. Keep your pencil moving. Resist the urge to erase. And that's why I often will draw with a pencil that doesn't have an eraser, which can seem kind of scary at first. But once you realize you can't erase, you kind of give up trying and you just move on. And then so you always want to glance back and forth between your subject, like the real cottontail that might be outside in your backyard under a shrub, and your paper, so that you're really drawing from what you're looking at and not from your imagination. And then, of course, having fun. All right. So, oh yeah, Anne says Harvey was an imaginary bunny seen by Jimmy Stewart in the movie. Oh, okay. How much fun was that? Okay, great. All right. And then, so a couple other techniques is I've got this little handout here that is based on a sea lion. Of course, we're not drawing sea lions today, but same idea is when you're sketching something quick like this, you want to think about blocking in your basic shapes. So just looking at your bunny and looking at the oval of the ears and sort of the triangular head and the oval body, the circular paws, that kind of thing. And then thinking about their proportions, their angles that you see, various structures, how they're aligned, negative shapes, which means the part that's white that's behind the animal, and then flow lines. Now, many of you have been watching my workshops forever, so I'm not going to belabor this point, but you can learn all about that in my courses, which I'm sure you can find online later on if you want to. Okay, so here we're going to practice a bit because anything we draw, the more we observe it and look at it from all of its angles, the better. So when you're sketching something, the more you look at it first, and the more you observe it from all angles, the front and the back and the left and the right, the more you'll understand its structure and kind of how it's built and how it can move. Like bunny rabbits, like these guys, they move in a different way than like the jackrabbit we're going to draw later on, which has much longer legs and can hop much farther distances. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we are going to sketch these guys. So what I want you to do is get your sketching pencils out, and I want you just to try. We're going to just do this for 5 minutes, and I'm just going to try to be quiet a little bit. Okay. So again, the idea is to try to make them like this. Just look at each rabbit and kind of block them in really simple, kind of cartoony. These are called thumbnail or gesture sketches. Oh, Christy says you have 2 cottontails that live in your front yard. Wonderful. Okay, so let's practice sketching these. And we can listen to the dawn chorus while we try. And I'll sketch some more along with you. I know everybody is different ages here and has different abilities. So just do what you can. Just have fun with it. I'll just spend about 30 seconds on each sketch. And keep them kind of small. That's how you can do it fast. So maybe just a couple inches, like example I showed you. After we do some of these warm-up sketches, we'll study a little bit more about how rabbits are put together and what they look like in real life, which will help you to sketch them even more realistically. Noticing their big ears, their rounded rump, they're kind of hunched back because they can jump far. They got big eyes and ears to listen out for predators. They're really fuzzy. Usually their fur is a brownish color, although many domestic rabbits have other interesting colors, but wild rabbits are generally a color that will help them be camouflaged to protect them from being eaten by foxes and coyotes and such. Okay, 30 seconds. Okay, let me show you what I have. Okay, so that's what I was able to do in just a couple minutes. So you can see just how loose and cartoony those are. And no matter what they turn out looking like, just the act of spending long enough to look at something for a while helps you to understand more about what it really looks like. Okay, so let's look at one more page, practice one more. Okay. So let's try sketching just any of these that look like fun. You can see they're in all different poses. And I'll follow along, okay? Getting good at sketching is like riding a bike. It just takes practice. Remember, no erasing. Just keep your pencil lines very light and loose. Keep your pencil moving. Looking back and forth quickly at your little rabbit on the screen. These are in some very interesting poses. Yeah. Some of them are quite challenging, but it's fun. It's fun to challenge ourselves. So you may know what a rabbit looks like. You may think you know, but once you start sketching, you notice all sorts of things you might not have noticed before. And that's what I love about drawing is it really helps me to live in the moment and really notice what's around me, what I'm drawing, and to memorize it. Once you've drawn something, you'll never forget what it looks like. Okay, a couple more here. Some are a little bit more easy to draw than others. Some of their shapes are pretty complicated, but it's great practice. And my motto in drawing is drawing to learn while learning to draw. And what I mean by that is that while you're observing something closely in order to draw it, that is helping you to understand its structure. And the more you practice drawing something, the more you'll get better at drawing too. Okay, wonderful. So let's move on. We got more to do here. Let me show you what I've got so far. So I just did some of these. So, did any of you guys follow along? I hope you will share at the end some of your sketches. Ella, is that Ella? Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on. And you can always come back to these pages and practice some more. So, let's close the window so we don't hear the birds anymore. There we go. Okay. Okay. So now we went from some fictional rabbits and drawing some rabbit photographs. Let's talk about some real rabbits. Heidi says, or Hyde, is that how you say your name? I'm sorry. Buster Baxter, Arthur. Yes, good. And Sue says you drew a few. Okay, right. So, real rabbits. Well, of course, the Easter Bunny, we all know that. And so let's talk about the characteristics of rabbits, whether we're talking about the Easter Bunny or if we're talking about fictional rabbits like Peter Rabbit or the Velveteen Rabbit. They all have certain structures, okay? So now we're going to get a little scientific, but hold on because we're going to do some more drawing. And if there's kids watching, I'm sure your parents can help explain these parts to you. So here's a little painting I did of a black-tailed jackrabbit a long time ago. So anyway, rabbits belong to a scientific, like taxonomic order called the lagomorphs. And what's unique about them is they have this second set of incisor teeth behind the first ones. They're called peg teeth. Their paws are completely furry. They don't have any, they're not like your cat or dog that has the skin at the bottom that's kind of hardened to walk on surfaces. Rabbits have their paws are completely furred. The females are larger than the males, which is kind of a rare trait among all the mammal families and orders. And of course, their rear legs are big. Their whole legs are elongated and very strong, modified for jumping. So that's kind of similar to like kangaroos, right? And you may have sketched kangaroos, which are a type of marsupial, with me last year, but they're not closely related at all to rabbits, except for the fact that they're both mammals. And all of them are terrestrial, which means none of them live in the ocean or rivers or lakes. They're all strictly herbivorous or vegetarians, and they have a very short furred tail. So, those are some of the things you've probably noticed already. Now, they have large litters. The baby rabbits are called kits, and these are some pet ones, and these are some real ones. Aren't they cute? They're in their little warren. So it really ensures survival if the mother can have lots of babies throughout her lifetime, because many rabbits do fall prey to predators. They serve as, breakfast, lunch, or dinner to things like hawks and eagles and coyotes and foxes and things like that. So, so they used to be more thought that they were more closely related to rodents like squirrels and rats and beavers, those kind of things. But if you happen to come across a skull when you're out hiking in the forest, maybe you might notice the difference. You might be able to tell. And there's a whole science behind the ability to identify a skull and figure out who it is belonged to in real life. So you can see this is a squirrel skull, and this is a rabbit or lagomorph skull. And there's a few things that are similar in the fact that they have this really big gap between their incisor teeth and their cheek teeth. And they don't have any canines like a dog or a cat because they just eat plants, so they don't need to pierce anything like a predator does, right? So they have this big gap called the diastema, and that allows them to squeeze their lips between there so they can actually just chew on food in the front part of their mouth and not have it go into the back part. Now, you can see in rabbits, their skull has these holes in them called fenestrations that rodents don't have. And there's another super unique thing that only the rabbit family has is this tiny second set of incisors. You can barely see it, but those peg teeth are unique compared to all other mammals. So they're similar to rodents in being gnawing herbivores with large, continuously growing incisors and being able to close their lips behind that gap. But really, they're very different. So anyway, there's two families in the lagomorphs. So most of you, think of rabbits, and that's what we're mainly talking about today. But the other family are the pikas. Tell me in the chat box if you joined me to sketch the American pika. Aren't they adorable? Now, you can sketch those if you're inside my mammal course. And I guess I could always find a link to that mammal course if you're not in it. Um, so who's ever seen a pika before? Anybody ever seen a pika? Tell me in the chat box. They're kind of hard to see. They usually live up in the mountains, up in the granite cliffs. It's very steep slopes and live within between the rocks and such. So anyway, that's a different family. And so, what we're talking about today, what we're focusing on, is the family Leporidae. And the way I remember it when I was first studying biology in college is thinking about how rabbits can leap high. So, Leporidae. And it's pretty small. It only has about 60 species. And about half of them are kind of more like these bunnies, and about half of them are more hares and jackrabbits. And so here's kind of how they're all related. And so the hares and jackrabbits are down here. They're not as closely related to the other rabbits. The main ones you've probably heard about are cottontails. And that's what the Easter bunny is, by the way. He's a cottontail. Okay, so you've heard these different phrases, and this is what they mean. Is rabbit? The term rabbit is common name for all species in the family except the genus Lepus, and that's the one we're drawing today, the jackrabbit. Cottontails. That's not it's sort of a common name, but it does really actually refer to the genus Sylvilagus, with about half the species. And then jackrabbits are just about the other half of the species. Those are jackrabbits and hares. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the differences with those in a minute when we draw them. Oh, Christy, you've seen them in the Sierra Nevada mountains? Yeah, me too. That's where I grew up near Lake Tahoe. And I've seen a lot of them there. Yeah. Okay, anyway, so like we said, all of these guys are herbivores. Opportunistic herbivores means they'll just about eat anything that's not an animal. So they like leaves, they like little flowers, they like berries and seeds and fruits. They'll even eat stems and roots and all kinds of things. So pretty easy. And of course, they like carrots. The Easter bunny likes carrots, doesn't he? And you can see how flexible they are. They really can move fast because they have a really flexible backbone. And usually that back is arched like in the ones we were sketching when they're sitting, but they have the ability to arch that the other direction so that they can take very long leaps. Okay, and then, just here's another side view of that skull. Sorry, it's a little out of order, but can you see the two characteristics? If you were going to see this skull out in the field, you would know it's a rabbit and not a rodent because it's got this second pair of peg teeth behind the front incisors, and it's got all these holes in the nostrils here. Okay, and then here's the skeleton that helps you understand how long their legs are, how they can leap so high and have such a flexible backbone so they can leap away from their predators with these really long hind limbs with the femur, and this is the knee, just like our knee, and the lower leg, and then their foot is really elongated, and that also helps them jump too. And here's you can see a side view if you compare them. So when I'm teaching people how to draw something realistically, because most of my students want to draw more than just cartoons, they really want to understand how to draw something for real. The more you know what it looks like underneath, the better. So like here you can see how their back arches. They have this very long, flexible back and the very long back legs. And that's what really makes their skeleton unique and able to jump so far. Okay, because they do have to run fast because they do have lots of predators, and the rabbits, just like lots of rodents, are very important in the kind of middle of the food chain. So if you think of a food chain starting with, plants and smaller animals and herbivores, and then going up to carnivores and top carnivores, the rabbits are really important in being able to help sustain our populations of wolves and foxes and coyotes and lots of raptors. So let's just look at a couple representative species before we do some more drawing. And so the European rabbit, that's the one that is what Peter Rabbit was based on. And also, that's the species that the Easter rabbit is. Don't forget, the Easter rabbit is real. And so um, this is also the species that the domestic rabbit was bred from. And the rabbits are much more able to become tame, whereas the jackrabbit will draw at the end. None of those have ever been tamed. So the domestic rabbit was bred from the wild European rabbit. And the domestic rabbit has over 300 breeds in 70 countries. Told me in the chat box if you've ever had a rabbit when you're a kid or an adult? Now, like I told you, I used to have Angora rabbits, and you can brush their fur and get the fur to be able to spin it. But there's many breeds, and they come in all different colors, and they have floppy ears and erect ears. Oh yeah, Christy had one. That's wonderful. Okay, and then here's a historic picture. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. Here's a historic picture of a little girl showing her rabbits. So lots of people show their rabbits in 4-H or FFA, like I did when I was a kid. Okay, now coming over to America, we have the cottontail. And so again, that's in the genus Sylvilicus. There's lots of those, and probably the most widespread of those is the eastern cottontail. Now, really, this whole family of rabbits, the 60 species, they live worldwide, and they live in many different habitats. The rabbits and hares of the world, from boreal forests to desert and savanna and chaparral. And so they have lots of different habitats. Anyway, this eastern cottontail is widespread on the East Coast. I thought I had some notes on them. Yeah, the eastern cottontail, eastern US to Mexico. It's the most common rabbit species in North America. He looks like he has a little bit of a worried look on his face, doesn't he? And you can see their cute little nose. It has this very characteristic nose that is easy to draw, kind of like an upside down V, and then a line, and then kind of another sort of horizontal line for the mouth. Okay. Now, there's just the opposite of common rabbits. There's some rabbits that are very rare and endangered. There's actually this one called the Amami rabbit, and this is from the Amami Islands, which are where are they? Kind of in near Japan. And it's also called the Ryukyu rabbit because there's another series of islands called the Ryukyus. And this is called a living fossil. And it's a remnant of species that used to be found all over Asia. And many of these almost went extinct because of invasive non-native predators like mongoose and feral dogs and cats, but now they're protected. Okay, so moving on to hares and jackrabbits versus just plain old rabbits. Um, so hares and jackrabbits all belong to the genus Lepus. And again, you can remember this leap like leaping high, high in the air to escape their predators. So hares and jackrabbits, they live above ground and make a simple nest, whereas rabbits usually live in a burrow or a warren. Hares are born precocial. That means they're able to see and run. Their eyes are open. They're able to see and run soon after birth. Whereas rabbits are born blind and need a lot more care from their parents when they're growing up. Hares are larger than rabbits. They get up to be 10 pounds. And they have longer ears and often with black markings. And hares are solitary. They don't live in big colonies like rabbits do, like the rabbit colony in the book Watership Down. And they've never been domesticated. And they're much more faster and longer distance runners. Hares and jackrabbits can run up to 50 miles an hour and leap up to 10 feet. And this really unique jointed skull. I couldn't find a picture of it for you, but their skull helps to protect their brain and absorb shock when leaping, since they leap a lot more than rabbits do. So rabbits can kind of hop, but hares can leap much farther. Now, one you might be familiar with is the snowshoe hare. And that's the most widespread hare. It's from the tundra to the northern United States. And their population really fluctuates with the bobcat or lynx in these 10-year cycles that have been famously studied by biologists for years. Oh, there's another hare in Europe based on Alice in Wonderland. Here's a drawing from Alice in Wonderland, the March hare. And you may have heard of the term mad as a March hare. So that's based on the European hare, which is a species of hare that lives in Europe. And they seem mad because in the spring, when they're mating and competing for their boyfriends and girlfriends, they box each other. So they actually stand up and kind of hit each other. And so that's what people used to say, you're mad as a March hare, meaning you're unpredictable and you might fight with other people. Here's another hare that's in the Arctic, and they change coat colors that helps them to be more camouflage. So in the summer, they'll change color to blend in with the greens and browns of the summer tundra because it's light for 24 hours a day there, and there's lots of growth of plants. But in the winter, they turn white to blend into the snow. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to learn about and sketch our black-tailed jackrabbit. And let me show you. Let me see. Where will I go with that? Let me show you. Yeah. Okay. So you may have heard of John James Audubon, who's much more famous for drawing and painting birds. But I was able to find this beautiful historic painting that he did of the California hare, which is another name for the black-tailed jackrabbit. And they were able to stand up again, kind of like a kangaroo, but again, not related at all. But they do live in these really open habitats like kangaroos, and they do need to hop long distances so they can escape their prey, just like a kangaroo. So, a lot of animals in the world tend to, some pairs of animals tend to look a lot alike. Even if they're not closely related, because they have same habitat or um same anatomy based on their habits and their habitats. So the black-tailed jackrabbit or California hare lives from sea level up to 10,000 feet. They range in weight from about 3 to 6 pounds. They can be up to 2 feet long, and they're one of the largest hares in the Americas. And they live in the Western United States. Oh, yeah, here's a picture running very quickly. So you can see how quickly they run. So they live in usually very open habitats. So that's why they need to run fast because their predators can run after them. And they're also very well camouflaged. Like this one blends in very well with its background, and you might not even be able to see it. So those are all things that help them protect them from being eaten by their predators. Another species actually is the antelope jackrabbit. It looks a little bit different because it has lighter ears. And they live farther south. They're very closely related to the black-tailed jackrabbit. They live farther south in the American Southwest and down into Mexico. Anyway, these guys, the black-tailed and the antelope, they have interesting habitats, forests, savanna, shrublands, grasslands, and deserts. The black-tailed jackrabbit ranges from where I live, which is kind of up near the tip of this green, all the way down into Baja, Mexico, and even into the central U.S. So tell me in the chat box who lives where these jackrabbits live, and have you ever seen one in the wild? So again, really, they're really variable habitat. So they're really adaptable, kind of open forests, savannas, shrublands, grasslands, also called chaparral, kind of foothills. Here in Oregon, this habitat is called the Oregon High Desert. Or if you go a little bit further to the southeast, it's called the Great Basin or the Mojave, Sonoran deserts, all the way down in the Chihuahuan deserts. Yes, some of you guys have seen them there. Yeah. And the range is actually expanding eastward. I read that they have gone all the way to the East Coast, some of them, and are competing with the native white-tailed jackrabbit. Oh, Jennifer, you live in Siskiyou County. Very cool. That's a beautiful area. I used to live in Humboldt County when I went to school at Humboldt State University. And Sue has seen one too. Yeah, so here's just a few examples of some of the habitats, kind of open oak woodlands, kind of savannas, and then the saguaros. Now, they live in a lot of habitats because they can eat just about anything. So it depends on where they are. They'll even eat cactus and cactus fruit. They can eat grass and shrubs and herbs, twigs and bark, even pine and oak seedlings. They'll eat the tender leaves of young sagebrush, mesquite, creosote bush, that kind of thing. And you can imagine this habitat has a lot of their predators too. So they have to watch out for eagles and hawks and owls, coyotes, foxes, and wild cats. You should be careful if you ever find one out in the wild. You should not touch it. Black-tailed jackrabbits are host to many parasites, including fleas and ticks and lice and mites and many parasites inside them, like trematodes, nematodes, and they get a lot of diseases too. Like in the West, they get tularemia and even Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So it's important, to not be around. Try not to handle or catch a wild jackrabbit. Okay. Okay. So, and again, they have really large ears, the hares and jackrabbits. Now, these hares' ears not only help them to listen for all those predators we mentioned and make sure to draw them really big when you draw them, but also helps them to cool off because they have a lot of blood vessels in there. You might even be able to see there's these little red lines inside of the kind of pink area there. So their ears are very thin and they have lots of these red lines, which are the blood vessels. And those blood vessels, just like the veins you can probably see in your wrist, if you looked at your wrist right now, those are carrying lots of blood back and forth from your heart. And they can help to cool the body by bringing hot blood from the center part of the body into the ears. And then that dissipates and is able to bring cooler blood back to their body. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to start sketching them. So we're going to sketch them in a few different poses, running and remembering those things we talked about, my 6 steps for sketching success. So one of them is blocking in those shapes. So thinking of the big ovals, of the ears, kind of the oval triangle of the face, the big oval of the body, the cute little short tail, and then noticing the proportions of each oval, like noticing that the oval of the head is maybe about 1/4 of the oval of the body, and noticing angles. So that's like the angle of say right here between their neck and their back. That's a very sharp angle. And then negative shapes. You can see those negative shapes really easily here in this rabbit because it's against the white snow background. So look at like this oval shape of the snow between the rabbit's back two legs. So when you're drawing something, you can draw it. It helps you to look at the part that isn't your subject, or like the rabbit, just as much as looking directly at your subject. Oh, Milana says, yeah, your cat, her ears are colder than her body. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. And Judy said you saw one in the wild in Canada. Okay, great. Okay. And Sue has seen them in foothills, oak woodlands. Great. Okay, good. So let me see what else. And then just looking more closely at our black-tailed jackrabbit. Of course, they're named for their black tail. It's black on the upper surface and white on the bottom. They also have black-tipped ears. The rest of their body is kind of this multicolored, beautiful fawn color, I would say, with some white underneath, kind of some creamy yellow, and then some brown and black flecked hairs. So very beautiful and blends in very well when it's not against the snow, right? And so now I'm actually going to show you one. Let's practice drawing this one, okay? Now, one thing I always suggest you do when you practice sketching, I'm going to play this for you. This guy is a jackrabbit running in slow motion. So this one's in the desert. You can see those big saguaro cactuses in the background, and also those flat cactus, flat padded cactus. So look how tall they are, how long and skinny their legs are, and how long their ears are. Yes, Catherine says fantastic ears. You see how camouflaged he is. But one thing you can do when you're practicing watching videos as a way to learn to sketch is you can always click this button down here, and where it says playback speed, you can go from normal to super slow, like 0.25 means is going at a quarter the speed. And so doing that can help you to draw something, to practice drawing something like a quick moving jackrabbit. So just appreciating the way they move. Remember, the more you look at something before you start drawing it, the faster and easier it will be to draw it, and the more accurate your drawings will be. Notice how he perfectly blends into his background and all the interesting, diverse habitat he lives in. He or she, we can't tell. Remember, the females of rabbits are larger than the males, and that's one of the unique traits that not very many other mammal families possess. And look at just the disproportionately huge eyes as well. So many prey species, like rabbits and rodents and different kinds of deer and things, they have to have really large eyes and ears and a really good sense of hearing and smell, and they've got those eyes on the sides of their heads to really help them see the predators more quickly. So those are all adaptations for being safe in their habitats. Isn't that cool? Okay, so we are going to go back. We are going to start sketching now. We've spent plenty of time now, just about an hour, learning all about rabbits, cottontails, and hares, and jackrabbits, both real ones like the Easter Bunny and fictional ones like the Energizer Bunny. And so now it should be easier to draw them. Okay. Oh, Judy McMillan is new. Thanks for joining me today. So anyway, today I'm demonstrating with one of these very thin, it's Prismacolor brand, very thin pencil. And that's just a type of colored pencil that has a thinner lead that's stronger, and it stays sharper longer than other colored pencils. And it's one of my favorites for drawing out in the field. And like I said, I'm going to be doing a lot of that starting next month. I'm going to Costa Rica for a 6-week artist's residency and going to be doing a bunch of teaching and art and birding and hiking and all kinds of stuff. And this is my favorite pencil that I use in the field because it doesn't smear, unlike a graphite pencil. But it does take some practice because they aren't very erasable. And so it takes some practice having a very, very light hand. So you want to just start with a very, very light touch, barely tickling your paper. And Cynthia is new too. Hi, welcome. So the first thing I do is kind of just ghost um, sketch. I will just kind of look at my animal first and kind of pretend I'm sketching it by going around the body and thinking about those different shapes, which we've already talked about a lot. So the huge ears, the big sort of worried looking eye, that hunched back, the short tail, and the very long skinny legs. Okay. So what I do first then is I'm just going to kind of show where the edges of my paper are. I mean, the edge of the rabbit, sort of. So kind of the top. And start with very light lines. Now, you're not going to see these at first, but I'm just drawing in ovals kind of for all those different body parts, and they'll get darker in a moment. So I'm just making these very light ghosted lines. And you see how I have my pinky out? That helps stabilize my hand and make me able to draw more accurately. And then just kind of placing that all four of those legs just very quickly, and they almost touch the bottom of the rectangle of the paper there. And when we're drawing each of these parts, just thinking of circles, ovals, thinking of what structure is aligned to what structure. And so now I look back and I'm going to start drawing a little bit darker. And I'm first making sure I'm kind of the right size, because what happens often if you haven't drawn much before, I'm going to freeze that a moment so you can catch up. If you haven't drawn much before, it's easy to start drawing one part and not kind of thinking about making room for the rest of the part. And sometimes we draw things that we think are more important. We actually draw them too large. So, like a lot of times, like if you're a little kid, little kids will draw the eyes of a human super large and give them a lot of hair and big eyes, but no forehead or chin because they don't think those are as important. So it is important to start thinking about those relative proportions of the eye and the head and the body, so that you make sure that you have room for the whole body, because you don't want to start drawing the head and then all of a sudden it's as big as the piece of paper and you don't have any room for the rest of the body, right? So that's why I start off so lightly and really look closely. So now I'm giving you a close up of the head because we're going to work on the ears now a little bit. And you see now I'm drawing a little bit harder. I'm just pushing my pencil a little bit harder on the paper, and I'm looking back and forth at the left and the right ear. The left ear is mainly covered by the right. Then there's the head, and there's kind of an angle on the forehead where the eyes are right there. And then another angle for where the little muzzle or snout is. And then the cheek, there's a little line of the cheek that goes around to the back of the neck. And then a big eye right under the ears. And a snout and their lips. So I'm just kind of blocking that in, and we'll get some more detail later. Trying to make sure I got the room for the rest of the body and that big arch of the back. Remember back to when we looked at the skeleton, all those vertebrae are very flexible and they can make the rabbit arch like this when its feet are gathered underneath it, or make the black back very flat when it's reaching with its legs at the other part of its gait. And we see the back hip there and the knee. Let me freeze that again for you. So, when you're drawing an animal, you can think of those parts and remember what the skeleton looked like. So you can think of the skull here. You can think of these arched vertebral column ending in a short little tail. Then you can think of the arm area, also called the pectoral girdle, and then the body where the ribs are and all of the internal organs. And then the last part are the hips and the back legs and the big old knee right there and the ankle. Okay. Okay, let's keep going. So that knee right there. And as I start to draw, looking at those very sharp angles, because he or she has the his limbs really gathered under him at the most collected part of its gait, of this galloping gait. You got the ankle here. And then, sorry, the ankle and the foot. The foot is pretty long there from the ankle compared to like a dog or a cat. And remember, that's really long so that they can jump. They have lots of jumping area. And I'm just kind of indicating a couple of the toes. You can't see all of them because they're all covered in fur, but I'm just drawing 2 lines because there are 3 toes sort of visible. And just looking very closely. Gonna really double check where that chest is. And how tall it is. So I'm always double checking my proportions. Of course, it's easier to do on a photograph like this than on a real rabbit or hare in the wild. But it's always good to practice drawing from photographs first before you start drawing from real life. So we're looking at that nice negative shape between the front and rear legs. And it's kind of hard to tell what leg is doing what. So it might be easier for you to see it in my drawing than you can see in the photograph, especially if you didn't print it yet. But we see that the rabbit's right front and rear leg are touching. So those are the ones we're drawing right now, is the right front and rear leg first. And then the belly, you can see a little bit of the belly between the legs. And just kind of looking closely at what else is happening here, what we see is the the rabbit's left front leg is mainly hidden. That's what I'm drawing now. And then the left rear leg, you can see that nice negative shape of snow between the left and right rear legs, and that can help you to draw it more accurately. So look at that just as much as you look at the actual shape of the leg. And then that left rear leg, its toes are coming out, and oh, I forgot to draw those. Sorry, we'll get to those later. Sorry, I forgot to draw that back toe. We'll get to those later. Okay, so we're going back to the head, gonna add some more details. So looking a little more closely at the exact shape of that right ear, and you can see inside the right ear a little bit. The rabbit's right ear, not the picture's right ear. So it's shaded inside a little bit with some white fur in the front. And the other ear is pretty much covered, and you only see the outside of that ear because you're looking at the back of it. And it's got black tips to it, just like the black tail. So this jackrabbit could be called the black-eared jackrabbit as well as the black-tailed. Now going on to the head, see that forehead is very sharply angled where the eyes are. And then it comes down into that cute little snout. And you can see part of its right nostril there open. And then its cute little lips. You can kind of see a little bit of both lips. I'm going to fix that. It looks a little awkward. I'll fix that later. Then its cheek. Yeah, it looks like he's sticking his tongue out now. Now I'm going to place that eye. It's right below the ears and it's very large. I probably have my eye a little bit too low. If I were you, I would draw the eye a little bit higher than I did. Anyway, it's got a big black pupil there and a beautiful sort of rust colored eyeball. And it's got kind of lighter color fur around the eye. Anyway, going down towards the chest, you see a lot of the chest because the front legs are really pushing back. So they're really far back. That's why it looks kind of awkward because they're in the part of their gait where they're galloping and all four legs are under their body, just kind of like a horse galloping. So this is the most gathered part of their gallop. So I'm just kind of working on a little bit more of their front legs, and the rabbit's front left leg is mainly hidden. So I just kind of put that in shadow. And now the back left leg with a lot of snow, a lot of negative shape snow oval between the back two legs. And I'm just putting that other back leg, kind of making it in shadow because it can get a little bit confusing with all of those lines. So I'm just pretending it's a little bit shadowed. Now his back right leg and the toes. And remember, rabbits are unique in having fully furred pads on their feet. They're not bare like cats or dogs or other mammals that walk on the ground. And that short little tail. And then getting it a little bit fuzzy because notice some parts of the body are fuzzier, like the back of his neck and his chest here. whereas the line of the arch of the back is very strong and straight, and those hairs aren't sticking out. So that line can be stronger. And you might notice this really subtle dip here. So if you want to be really accurate, there's this subtle area here where the back is separated from the hip area right there. Can you see that? And that's what I've tried to show here a little bit. So just little things like that can show that you kind of really understand the anatomy of the skeleton underneath, and that will help you to draw them a little bit more accurately. Now I'm just adding a little shading. And you could spend a lot of time on this beautiful fur, depending on what medium you're using. You could do a lot of beautiful fur work using various colors of colored pencils, and I could imagine you could spend a couple hours making that fur look realistic, but we're not going to do that today. We're just going to get you started on the structure of the rabbit, his outline, and you can finish it in whatever medium you wish. Making that tail, that upper part of the tail, really black, since it is the black-tailed jackrabbit. Just emphasizing a little bit of that shoulder there, I see. And the black ear tips. Oh, Marilyn. Yeah, I still need to add the paw. Yeah, I think I do that pretty soon. Yeah, I do that. I know. I just totally forgot. Yeah, like usually I would add these the dots and the lines for the whiskers at the very end. Oh yeah, there's my eraser. That's a special Tombow mono eraser. Anyway, there's that back left paw sticking out. And I'm just indicating a little bit of the toes there. So using that eraser just a little bit. Like I said, these colored pencils are pretty difficult to erase, but in a way that's good because they're difficult to smear. And if you're out in the field a lot, like I am, drawing in my field journal, I don't want my pages to get all smeared with graphite. So I really practice drawing and not erasing too much. But that Tombow mono eraser that has sand, little particles of sand inside it, that helps to be more abrasive, and then that can erase a little bit better. So I'm just working a little bit more on that face. I still messed up his little lower lip somehow. I think I fix it later. Oh, there I go. That's right. I'm trying to fix the lip. And then just adding some little shadows on the snow. It looks like a very cloudy day, so you don't see any strong shadows here. So the lighting is very flat. So you don't see a lot of shadows on either the rabbit or the snow. So now I'm going to do a second demonstration of the same jackrabbit species, but in a slightly different pose. So mainly you'll see that his feet are in a different position. And I'm going to demonstrate how to use the Derwent water-soluble ink tints pencils and a little water brush. So we're going to start by doing an outline, not quite as careful as the other one, and we're going to use those pens and brushes I showed you. So this one should be easier and quicker for you to draw. And I'm just using the same Derwent colored pencil throughout, starting with it dry and then going wet. So now that we looked at all of those shapes and angles, we're going to start with an oval for the ears, kind of a triangle for the face, moving on to the shoulder area, what we call the pectoral girdle, and then the arch of the rump all the way to the short little black tail that they're named for. And that tail kind of arches up. It's black on the top and white on the bottom. Then to show where the front legs are, you got a very steep angle there going back. And then the rear legs are coming forward because this rabbit is running very fast from a predator, possibly a lynx or bobcat, coyote. Now I'm showing you this this ruler. It's just helping you to think about angles and alignments, what structures are aligned with other structures, so what things are parallel to each other or perpendicular. And like the back, noticing the hump of the back is as tall as the top of the head. So I'm going to darken that up. Okay, noticing the hump of the rump lines up with the top of the head. You might not have a ruler when you're out in the field, but you can visualize like how tall the tail is, how it lines up with the jaw of the rabbit. So just those general kinds of angles and alignments concept. So now I'm going back to the rabbit. We're going to get his face worked on here. I got a close-up of the face for you. Down to the shoulder. Just measuring from the chest to the rump. Just to double check my shapes. Pretty close for doing a quick sketch. And I'm not trying to be as accurate as we did last time. This is just a quicker version to kind of show you these water-soluble pencils and nice negative shapes there, that white snow between the legs. The knee and the pad of the foot. They have these giant feet, and they have fur on the feet, unlike other mammals. Noticing where the shoulder and the feet line up, and the neck. So you can do these kind of things visually in your own mind without having to use the ruler, or you might have a ruler as well. Fixing the angle of that knee a bit. And again, looking at where the feet are coming back towards the rump. The right front foot is in the snow, and the left front foot is moving, lifted. Get back to that head, getting those ears. The rabbit's right ear, you can see inside of it. It's got a little white furry edge to it with the black tips. The angle of the forehead and the snout and the cheek and the jowl and the nostril and the mouth. And the eyes lined up right below the front of the ear. pretty big. Remember, these are a prey species, so they have big eyes and ears to help them sense danger. I could probably make that eye a little bit bigger, but the cream-colored fur around the eye make it look even larger. Getting the shoulder angle there. You can see that angle of the fur. The fur is a little creased is where that shoulder is. And you can see how I'm pressing a little bit harder as I get a little bit more confident with my lines and my shapes. Again, we're keeping this kind of loose like a field sketch. And the neck and the rump. And pushing a little harder so there'll be more of the colored pencil on the paper so that when I wet it, it'll give more of that watercolor look. And the black tail that they're named after. The species is, after all, the black-tailed jackrabbit, also called the California hare. Remember the photo I showed you earlier of the John James Audubon painting of the California hare? That's the same species. I was fixing the angle there of the knee, sorry. Getting that other toe of the back left leg. He's running really fast, so those feet are really arching forward. Now again, going over the whole thing, pushing a little harder, firming up. And then I'm going to use the side of my pencil just to get a little bit of color everywhere so that then I can wet it and spread it around. They have such beautiful fur. There's a lot of colors in this fur, and you could spend all day getting a very detailed colored pencil drawing of it, but this demo is just to show you how you can quickly get a watercolor kind of feel out of these Derwent water-soluble colored pencils. So it's a little quicker and less fussy than having a set of watercolors in the field with you. So I'm just pushing harder everywhere just to get more of the pencil down there so that once I wet it, there'll be something to spread around. So now comes the fun part. I'm using my field watercolor brush that's filled with water. And I'm just kind of quickly wetting everywhere just to get a color background. This is a very satisfying step. It's just really fun to do this part. Then I'm just adding a different color, getting those black tips on the top of the long ears, giving him a pupil and some shadowing here and there, nostril, little creases under the cheek and under the shoulder there, just with the side of my pencil, the black tail. You can see how beautiful this fur is. You could spend all day on it, like I said. A little shadowing on the ground where the snow is. That fur has lots of different colors in there. Whites and creams and sienna and umber and black. You don't have to be too exact with these brushes because you can always, these pencils, because you can always add more and use that brush, the water brush, to smear things around. If you have good thick multimedia paper or watercolor paper, you can even add more back and forth, as many details as you want. I'm just pretending I'm in the field and this jackrabbit is going to be a mile away before I get too far, so I gotta hurry. These guys can run 50 miles an hour and jump 10 feet at a time. So we gotta be quick. I'm just continuing to add some details, little mouth and muzzle and whiskers. So you can see how I'm going right back over the wet part, and the pencil, it's easy to add the pencils even if it's wet. So these have some advantages over non-soluble watercolor pencils. Non-soluble colored pencils. Again, these are the Derwent Inktense color pencils, although I'm sure there are other brands that are water soluble. But just demonstrating how I can continue to go back and forth over it, adding more pencil and then the water again lightly and loosely, and it's easy to keep adding and modifying. Noticing that creamy area around the eye that makes the eye look even bigger than it is. I was trying to get a little of that detail there. Okay, how y'all doing? I want to know, does anybody want to share yet? Hello, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm getting better from my chest cold, drinking lots of herbal tea.
Well, good luck on that. Just stay warm.
Yeah, lots of rest.
I hear it's snowing up in Oregon. My sister lives up near Salem, and she says a lot of snow.
Yeah, it's snowing. If you could see out the window almost there. So,
we've had late season rain for the last couple of days. We're very happy about that since we're in
we need the precipitation so bad.
Yeah. So these are the quick sketches.
Lovely. I love those, Sue.
Yeah, thank you. They were really fun to do. A few more. And then I did a bigger head.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it's funny, I've been living here for over 17 years, and I finally saw one jackrabbit running across my front yard, and I thought I was hallucinating. I'd never seen one. The other one.
Wonderful. Wow, really accurate anatomy there.
Thank you. And then this one, I did a quick sketch on watercolor paper.
Fabulous.
I'll paint him in watercolor later.
Oh, great. Make sure to share that on our Sketching Challenge Facebook page.
Okay, we'll do. It'll be a while. So thank you. This has been fun. Lots of fun.
Good. Happy Easter. Bye-bye, Sue.
Happy Easter for everyone. Bye-bye.
There's Jay.
Hi.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Layton.
Layton. Okay, yeah, my middle name is Lee. I'm named after Vivian Lee, who played Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. And I don't know very many people with that spelling. So yeah, wonderful. Thanks for joining us.
People mispronounce me or misidentify me. They always call me Lee instead of Jay. So I figure that's because it's the feminine, masculine, feminine name.
Right, right, right. Great. So let's see your sketches.
Here's my little one. Oops.
Oh, yeah. Nice, quick gesture sketches. Really nice. I love
And
that
then,
look.
and then the longer sketch.
All righty. Look at that. Great negative shapes and anatomy. And yeah, I love how you just kind of loose and gestural about it, but you still got the correct anatomy. Wonderful.
Thank you. This was my
Fabulous.
first class live. It's been kind of exciting. So
Oh,
hope to
thanks.
do
How
some
did you
more.
find us?
Thank you.
How did you find me? Are you
Oh, my friend Mary did a class with you in Klamath Falls for the Eagle
Oh,
Festival.
right.
And so
Fabulous. That was so much fun. We were so lucky. So many birds and great weather. So,
it was
yeah.
really nice.
Okay.
Hope to see you there another time.
I hope to come back next year. Yeah. Okay, great. Well,
Thank you.
thanks so much, Jay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there she is.
I'm,
How are you, Anne?
I'm fine, thank you. That was the one from the picture that you sent.
Yes,
And
correct.
the little wee ones that I did for the short.
Cute. Oh, those are nice. Yeah,
Thank
sometimes I just like being quick and gestural, thumbnail. I love the immediacy of those. You know, you don't always have to finish, a belabored hour-long drawing. You can do just as much fun to do those quick sketches.
I'm very bad at that. I have to go.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I'm glad you participated.
Thank you.
Fabulous. And where are you tuning in from?
I'm in Winnipeg, so obviously snow. We actually dodged a bullet. We were supposed to get up to 50 centimeters, and I think we got probably half of that. But we closed all the schools, closed half the roads.
Oh, wow.
Everything stopped. And then it wasn't
right
so bad.
now. Well, be careful out there.
This is Winnipeg. So
yeah, I guess you're used to it.
We are.
You wouldn't live there if you couldn't handle it, I suppose.
No comments on that one.
Yeah, right. Okay, Anne, thanks, and hope to see you Monday too. Okay, bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye.
All righty there. Okay, we got Marilyn. We almost skipped Marilyn.
The quick sketches, I don't know if you can see them. They're very quick. As you can see, very quick.
Yes.
But
yes.
This is the one I liked. And I'm not quite finished with it because I can do a lot more work with the hair, but I think I got the main.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. Maybe the hump of the back is a little bit tall, but otherwise quite accurate. Yeah. Now I have a question. Someone asked me, could I explain why rabbits' teeth are difficult for their pet parents to care for? Gee, I don't know. I don't remember. Marilyn, have you ever had pet rabbits?
No, never have.
Yeah, I had them in high school, but I don't quite remember what the issues were. But maybe it's because they have that unique second set of teeth behind the first ones. Maybe they need to be brushed. I don't know. Well, Sue says, nice drawing, Marilyn. Great. You have so many fun games there in your house.
Yeah. That's our game shelf and then books up above that.
I remember all those from being a kid. I miss those games. I should have kept some of them for when it's snowy like this. So you have something to do when it's bad weather. Well, thanks for sharing, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Okay, Judy, let's say what you got for us. Thanks for your patience.
Oh, no problem. These are the quick sketches. If it's close enough there, I tended to make them very chubby rabbits, I thought. They're all kind of like a blob. And then I had to turn my page to do.
No, they're cute. Plus, they're domestic rabbits, so they're probably fatter than their wild cousins, just like my pet rats are very fat compared to their wild cousins.
And then this is the hare. If you can see that well. I'll back it up a
Oh, there
little.
we go. Oh, nice. And what was your medium you were using?
I used a sketching pencil, but then later some colored pencil.
Okay, so you started with the graphite outline and then darkened it up
Yeah,
with colored
yeah,
pencils.
yeah.
Good,
And
good.
he seems not long enough, compared to this, but I was
Yeah, he's
pleased.
just a little bit pinched, but
Yeah.
there it's
Mhm.
very close. It's very, very close. Yeah.
And I've never done this before, so this is all due to your great instruction. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Well, you can keep coming to my workshops. I usually try to do at least one per month that's free, or you might be interested in some of my online courses. So, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Thank
thank you so much. Thanks for joining, Judy. Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
So I hope you enjoyed learning about rabbits and how to sketch them today. And I hope you have a wonderful Easter. And I hope the Easter Bunny brings you lots of presents. So until next time, bye-bye.